This meeting to order. Thank everybody for being here in a timely fashion. We have a number of items to discuss. Starting with the first is regarding the minutes from last month's meeting. Any additions, comments, or deletions to be made? If not, I would entertain a motion for approval of the minutes from last month's meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second? Actually, it was 2 months ago.
Second by default. Second.
Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All right. So, moving on to item B, listening posts. I think the reason this is on here is because with attendance area development, we're planning on holding some sort of listening posts, and we've had good discussions in the past about format, especially format, most recently, and location. So I just want to continue the discussion there, open it up to the floor.
What's this listing post on? You talking about boundaries?
At some point before we're going to have to go take the show on the road, so to speak. At least that would be.
Wonderful fun.
It can be. Can be enlightening.
All that. Okay, well, sure.
But it's not the same type of thing as like the bell schedule where it's harder to determine small group tasks for something like this, which is why.
Yeah, and I've been thinking about this as well as the bond discussions.
Okay.
Because we're getting so close that I'm feeling like almost to isolate them, even though they are two different things. I don't know.
I don't think it's bad.
I've just been thinking, mulling it over in my head of what would be the best way to do that. And which gets into, this is it's the same topic, but a little different. I was thinking, so you're talking attendance on listening posts, but I was thinking we need to have a plan for what's going to happen for bond community engagement.
Sure.
And maybe Steve already knows that. I don't know. Do you already have something in the works?
Well, we've got a shell out there, but it's the same shell that we used when we went through the RPS process. So there's kind of a
Say RPS.
revenue purpose statement for the
My brain couldn't recall.
save and silo for the sales tax reauthorization. So there's a kind of a playbook for that you go through. So we have that. This will be similar, a little bit longer, but that's.
And how far before the vote did you start that?
We started that. We actually went back and looked, and now I gotta see if I can remember off the top of my
February.
head. It was, but I think we started at the beginning of the school year. We did some of the groundwork in the summer, and then we started it at the beginning of the school year because part of the conversation was doing it in the summer isn't gonna help because there's anybody around, so we do it in the school year. So we let school start. I don't know if you remember, Kim, we started about 3 or 4 weeks into the school year was when we started having, because remember, we wound up, and we'll need to do this for this part too, is that we can provide information, so we provide lots of factual information, but then there was a community group, Marcia Grady and I think Chris actually, before he came on the board, were the co-chairs of that group. And they worked out of the Democratic Party offices because they have phone banks there. So they worked out of their offices, and they wrote their own scripts from our information. So we shared the information with them. So they had all the factual data from us, and then they used that to write their scripts and make their calls. And we had some conversation with them about things we thought would help provide persuasive conversation.
The district itself can't.
We can't advocate, and you can't use district resources for the advocacy. So we couldn't say, hey, we'll set up phones in the Lemmy Gym kind of thing. We can't use district resources for any kind of political action. So we walk as close to the line as we can in terms of providing information about how this will help us, but we can't actually ask you to vote yes.
And part of part of this may come back when we're talking item E on our agenda about thought exchange, but one of the things about thought exchange that's come from other districts that utilize it is once part 3 of thought exchange was administered and analyzed and districts understood really where the community pulse was, it was easier to frame a campaign for.
Right, so if you think about what we have up here, this is the static piece. It's been revised since then, but if you think about kind of the static piece, and then because we've had some changes in demographics and enrollment projections and things like that, are there pieces in there that need to change? And then what they've used in other districts is, okay, here's where we were, here are places we could go, how do we find that center of the Venn diagram? And that's the stuff we put on the bond.
Right.
Because that's the thing that everybody agrees on. And those are the things that we vote on.
So,
This, I mean, some of that is related to attendance zone. Some of the discussions that we're having right now are
Yep.
things that will only happen if there's expansions in different
Right.
places or that kind of thing. So that's why I say it's interrelated.
Mhm.
When will we know that we have to have a bond?
We run out of money. Where's our nifty line on here? Right here.
That's what I was just trying to figure out, actually.
It is. Where's the dash red line? This is the magic line.
yep.
Yeah, there's my arrow. We run out of money right here.
What year is
So,
that?
Fall 17.
Oh, we run out of money
We
soon.
run out of money. Yep. So these projects on this side of the line paid for.
Mm-hmm.
This side goes to the bond.
Let me just check something here. So just what you were looking at, Lori.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out.
Oh,
is-
you're looking at which ones?
Longfellow, because Longfellow.
Longfellow's
is-
before.
Longfellow is before, so that's
As you
in
see
place.
here's 16, design, bid, award, so we've already budgeted these dollars for it.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
But where we're gonna start to run into problems is what's over here.
Okay.
We start to get into what's
Just got
green.
nervous
So
there.
now we do southeast over here. We're gonna run out of money.
Before Southeast.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Who
then-
are critically
So
we
Longfellow's the last
Yeah.
project.
everything.
Yeah, and technically our new, let's see, is that, what is that here?
West High, Phase
Longfellow, I'm
1, and
looking at-
Longfellow
Yeah, West High Phase 1 Longfellow.
are the end.
Yeah, then we're done. Because this is Christine Grant right here is this pink line, so you can see that.
So
We'll be
we'll
planning
just be
for it, but-
starting on the, but we could possibly not finish.
Mhm.
We'd have the architectural design work done for it, but no scraping of the ground.
Now, from 2013 to 2017, we'll have tackled and accomplished Alexander, tackled and accomplished Twain, tackled and accomplished Penn,
Penn.
tackled and accomplished Lucas, tackled and accomplished Weber,
Coralville
tackled and
Central,
accomplished Coralville Central, and
New Hoover,
Liberty,
Liberty, yeah.
New Hoover, Liberty,
New Hoover,
those are the big ones.
and there was an addition on
Van
Van
Allen.
Allen.
Yep. And there's some other stuff we've done at Hills and at Old Hoover.
Yep, the temporary AC work at Old Hoover,
Yeah.
and then the,
Water work at Hills.
so it's like,
Yeah.
it's kind of why things get, you probably
As an
feel like you're drinking
FYI.
from the fire hose on projects because they're coming at you fast, but we've been getting as much done as we can get done before 27.
Just as an FYI, if we did PFM, who is our financial planner folks, they did the cast forward for us. And if the legislature were to reauthorize SAVE until 2049,
Mhm.
we would have $434 million in additional bonding capacity.
And is that if they did it in the next session? But if they don't do it in the next session, then we're
And $0
in trouble.
Boy,
So,
big money.
so let's stay on this, because we could go
Well,
off
we
on
still
that.
are on this because it's talking about, to me, it's talking about like, how do we prioritize these listening posts? And so to me, it's still, I think it's still on the agenda.
Okay.
I mean, we obviously can't get into deep details, but I think it helps to process what the listening post looks like based on
Sure.
how important and how close we're running out of time to actually
Sure.
start having these discussions.
I just want to make sure we don't stray too far.
No, I got you. I thought we were still in the vein.
And I do, what you mentioned before about the summertime is, I know a lot of people leave town.
Yeah.
but-
Doesn't prevent us from planning
So-
during the summer, and thinking ahead that way. So as we kind of think about,
Right.
16, 17 school year, I always kind of think about what are the competing interests out there that are going to draw people's attention. So I think it'll help as we, whenever it is, I think it will help as we come to some kind of closure on attendance areas, and then are able to pivot and put our energy and attention on asking people to support the bond.
Now, certainly,
Boy.
we haven't avoided listing posts in the summer. In the summer of 2014, we held 4 listing posts.
Yep.
June, July, August. I think there were 2 in August.
There were.
The people, huh?
Oh, yeah. You were at one of them.
Oh, yeah.
The
that's right.
spot. But
I can't think back that far.
the different thing here is that we also had a lot of front end input as well. So it's not exactly the same beast as 2014.
So I got a quick question.
Yes.
So with the listening post with boundaries,
Mhm.
what are we trying to get that's different than what we got the 2 years that we did the other boundary discussion? I guess, 'cause there was some elementary discussion that happened in those 2 years, right?
Oh, yeah.
So so we've talked to people. We might get some new people, but I'm just saying, like, what's our end goal for the listening post? Obviously it's to listen and hear people's idea, but we have some of this information already. So what are these going to accomplish, I guess?
I would say that the end goal is to say, okay, this is, we took the neighborhood input at this point, and we've been working on this in work sessions and discussing it at the board table, and here's where we are for scenarios. We want to talk about the pluses and minuses, or have you tell us what you perceive as the pluses and minuses to A, B, or C, scenario A, B, or C, or something like that. That's true,
Okay, because that's what was done before, right?
but I'd like to avoid, as Lori has pointed out in the past, the bird on a wire approach.
Which is why I was thinking about rolling it into the bond discussion too, because I was thinking it would be great to do the ticket approach like I did with the bell
Actually,
schedule, to try and get different people to talk. Because
That's a
in
good
our
idea.
community, we have this, and we're talking boundaries, but we're also talking a bond. And until we get a little more of this, I think we're gonna have a lot of trouble.
Mhm.
I think people need to listen to each
But
other.
do we think that because of the boundaries kind of being up in the air, that's the thing that's gonna dominate the conversation because it's the most current versus the bond? People will be like, yeah, that's important, but if I don't even know where my kids are going to school, I can't even talk about paying more
Well,
taxes.
some of the things require some changes, like for example, one thing we've talked about, or Steve and I have talked about anyway, is about whether Hills should have some sort of expansion. And that's not currently, is that currently in the plan?
Mhm.
No.
Yeah, and so that's the kind of thing that, so we wouldn't add more kids there unless we thought we were gonna do that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I like
So that's
your-
part of the bond discussion.
Well, I just, for me, I don't have the answer, I'm just thinking out
No,
loud,
but
because I've been mulling this around in my mind.
I really like the way that the tickets made people randomized to sit together and talk together.
Mhm,
I really like that.
mhm.
It was good. And I think that while there's going to be diverse opinions on even boundaries, if you start having those discussions, that can be very helpful for a bond, for a
Mhm,
further
right.
bond discussion. Is because then it makes, person from portion A of the district understand what somebody from portion B of the district is thinking. Because a lot, I mean, people get, other than going to work and going home, they shop and they go get coffee and they, you know, they get their oil changed in their area.
Right, they do, yeah.
So-
Especially this day.
The hope is that people from around the district will show up at these listening posts.
Which is why I think locations and format are important, because locations we need to,
Because regardless, wherever we do the location, the people that are in that area are gonna come. There'll be some people from other places unless we only have one discussion, and then that will force more people to come together. I'm just saying, if you have it in my neighborhood, I'm gonna go, but if you have it across town, I'm not coming.
right.
Because it's not convenient for me. So I don't know how it's really gonna provide diverse voices when people are gonna go what's convenient for them.
Yeah.
But even within neighborhoods, there's some pretty different opinions.
True.
I mean, even, the east side of town is a great example of where there's just a lot of healing that needs to happen, a lot of together. I'm not saying kumbaya, but, you know, there needs to be some talking. And to tell you the honest truth, I'm not even 100, as I thought this through in my mind, I'm not even completely sure that we as board members should be the ones that should be facilitating that. Because we're already in a position of having opinions, and I almost am sort of wondering if maybe it should be somebody who's, you know, working on trying to get some understanding between people, and we bring out defensiveness in people. We bring out opinions. So like, you said that, you said that, you voted for that, you voted for that.
An email from 6 months ago, you said this.
Yes, so again, I am thinking out loud, but I don't know what the answer is, but I've been thinking, I wonder if there's like some people that we could bring into this process that would be nonpartisan, not meaning political parties, but, you know, kind of neutral.
Can
Yeah.
you talk a little bit more about that? I'm not understanding the healing piece, and I'm not understanding the need for the mediator.
Well, for example, the closure of Hoover is a very sore topic on the east side of town. There are people that want it closed, and there are people that don't want it closed. And
Even within Hoover.
yes,
Well,
and
Well, yeah.
I feel, my personal opinion is that this party says, well, I'm not voting for the bond unless this happens. And this party says, well, I'm not voting for the bond unless that happens. Well, it just so happens that these two parties turn out for elections. These two groups, I mean, our voting records in this district show us that these are people who vote. And I'm concerned about the amount of division between them. And I'm not saying I have the answer, but
And that's one of the reasons I think, and it's separate from the attendance zone discussion, but that's one of the reasons that when we did the revenue purpose statement, we did not have board members lead it.
oh, really?
We had
Okay.
board members, part of the process. Sarah Swisher was intimately involved with it because she was the one that leveraged the Democratic Party headquarters, and Patty Fields was really involved in it. Again, they're both very active in the party, so they were able to get those resources. But Marcia and Chris were not board members. And we specifically sought 2 non-board members to lead the effort.
And yeah, and that, I didn't realize that, but that's exactly what I'm referring to. And we certainly need to hear what people are saying,
Yeah.
but I don't want to bring out their defensiveness.
Don't want to bring any baggage into it.
Yeah.
That's gonna be tricky with us even being in the room.
Well, and then maybe we're not in the room, maybe somebody just records it or takes notes and.
They were always in the room. I can tell you that there were lots of board members in the room all the time when that was happening. So it wasn't that they weren't involved in the process. They just, the face of it, maybe is the better way to say it, were those two and not the board members. I will tell you that, and you'll probably see this when you read that research that we were talking about, that most successful bond referendums have a unified board.
Yes, actually, I
And
read
so,
that
yep,
in
when
the
the
article
board
today.
stands up together,
It said
and
pretty much if you don't have a unified
all you need is
board.
one dissenter,
Mhm.
just one.
Which is why I'm concerned about having this conversation with the boundaries, because there is no clear, we are all over the place on boundaries, no changes, some amendments, not. So I just feel like to the community, we're already divided. And then we're starting, if we go into a discussion about, oh, but we want money from you, they're gonna be like, well, we got these many problems with y'all. So like, why would we want to stick our necks out there for you all when you all can't even get it together as a group? This is observation from community members. So that's what I'm saying, if we mix the two, we might start a fire that we wasn't intended to burn it all the way down so soon, is what I'm concerned about. Because some people don't trust us. I mean, and they have a reason not to trust us. I mean, we've proven that we bounce around a lot, so I'm questionable sometimes, going like, what are we doing?
Well, one of the things that, Lori, you were at Garner with Chris Liebig and myself, and one of the points that I tried to make in the room is, when we're talking things out and hammering things out, we're trying to get to the best solution possible. We have diverse opinions, because you should worry if everybody walks into a meeting with, you should worry that something's going on if everybody walks in and they don't say the stupidest thing in the world. Right? Sometimes we say stuff and people go, well, that's the dumbest thing ever. Why would so-and-so say that? It's because the discussion has to happen in public. And people don't necessarily understand that. Instead, they like to play it like, taking sides. So I think and unfortunately the belief is, well, I don't like Director so-and-so's opinion. It's like, well, but the seven of us are trying to come, collectively 7 are better than 1. So, I mean, we could always hold on, scheduling anything until
Well, I would personally say that my thought would be, like, right now, when we don't really know what we're doing, would not be the time to go out to the public and say, what do you think of this? Because we don't even have a clear path where we're at. In terms of elementary boundaries, anyway. I mean, we're a little further along, I think, with secondary, but with elementary.
So without talking timing, can we talk, it sounds like we've already talked a little bit format. Do you have suggestions for format? As far as, because I can tell you, bird on a wire and being on the front and you being on the other side and you being on the other side.
I get that.
I hate it too. Thank you. We're all in agreement that we hate the bird on a wire thing. Okay.
We do that every other Tuesday.
Yes, we do. Except.
It's called community comment.
Except, there's no rules in a listening post.
True.
And it can be pretty ugly and hurtful for a lot of time that all of us spend doing a volunteer thing that we were elected to do. Format-wise, I really like the different ideas that you brought regarding the bell schedule. Whether we duplicate that or do something similar where it makes people of diverse opinions sit down. And that was kind of based on the Hotel Vitro thing as well from 2013. But I think that worked. This is my opinion. I think that worked very well.
Yeah, I think it was fabulous. I mean, I heard people having great conversations that were on completely opposite sides. Just really didn't know.
And some
they
people
didn't understand some of the challenges that other people face, that they just are so in their own world, they just don't understand it,
But one of the things that we did with the bell schedule was, here's what we're considering, here's why we're considering da-da-da-da-da. And I think that what we need to have is almost a more open-ended discussion at tables to say, here's where we're at, here's what it does for walkability, here's what it does for balance, here's what it does for this, that, or the other thing. And just there, go. You 8 people, you 8 people. And then have a report out.
Yeah.
But summaries need to be discussed here. I thought it worked well.
I thought
The second one especially, the first one, the attendance was a little bit low. There will not be low attendance for this.
No. Right.
There will not be low attendance for this. Which brings me to my next question. Where? Because we're not reaching, as is evidenced by the neighborhood input process, we're not reaching entire segments of our community. So, I don't recall getting a whole lot of input from any minority group. And that's kind of a flaw in that process that was discussed at the front end. So,
And I said that.
I know you did.
I said it multiple times.
I know you did.
Just like,
I know you did. And Director Rowland did as well. And I think that we need to try and maximize the opportunity for people that aren't the voices we've already heard.
well, because we don't make it available to them.
So
I
how do
mean, just because we it doesn't seem like first of all, schools are adversarial to these groups. I mean, like, look at our student achievement. I really want to participate in a process where majority of the kids who look like my kids aren't even proficient in reading? No, because I feel like you don't care about my kids. So, I mean, and if we have all of our vulnerable groups are struggling in our district. Why would I want to be a part of a process? Only the people whose kids are doing well want to be a part of that process because they have some buy-in and they feel like they have something to gain or to lose. Versus this group is just losing, and they've been losing, and they continue to lose.
So help me figure out solutions.
Help them win. Then I'll come to the table. But if I keep losing, then why would I want to participate in your process where I'm probably not going to get what I want anyways because I've never gotten what I needed, let alone what I wanted. That's the problem. I mean, like, I don't want nobody I know, they're like, what? Go to what? When is that? I don't know anything about it. It's not even floating in that atmosphere because what's floating is our kids are failing, our kids are struggling. Now we have all this data that proves that our kids are failing, our kids are struggling, and not a peep. Not a peep.
Well, so here's where I'm going to come back to 2014 again. We provided transportation, childcare, interpreters, food, all those things, and yet we still did it wrong because it came from us. It came from the district. And that ties into what you're saying, Natasha, in that why am I going to go? Even if there is childcare, food, interpreters, and transportation, why am I going to go if I feel disenfranchised by the whole thing?
Mm-hmm.
So how do we...
I keep saying, if you all want people to, you have to go to the places where these people already are, where they're already gathering, where you can already get that feedback from them. Inviting them, some of our schools specifically will have some of their community event and community centers because they know people will go there because they trust that space. They don't necessarily trust our space. They don't even know who our board members are.
Do you remember what the room looked like at the spot?
Well, absolutely. You were right there in the midst around people of color and barely any people of color came.
Exactly. So I
Yeah,
wanna avoid-
because it's about the institution as well. It's about the institution as well.
So how
Schools
do-
are adversarial to those communities. It's a systemic issue, right? So, I mean, we can't address this in a listening post. That's not gonna happen. But you can show up at things like Juneteenth or the Latino Festival and have a space there where people can be open to be engaged, or you
Okay.
have people from that community being at that table to also help
Okay.
with that conversation. But to just say, hey, Black people, Latino people, they're not coming.
Right.
They're not coming.
So this goes back to what we talked about at the beginning of the, I'm gonna call it the session, when we started. We talked about taking the listening post to the community events instead of having our own community event.
Mhm.
So she just talked about, Latasha mentioned the Latino Festival. So maybe that should be our goal as we think about the summer, is identifying those opportunities.
And they're coming up. I mean, they're already planning them. They're already advertising them. They already exist. I'm a freaking Juneteenth chair for the last 6 years. You know, I know that it's coming up. And so my thing is like, I know diverse populations of people attend these things. They don't go to all this other stuff. because they don't necessarily feel welcome. So going to a listening post that's odd and weird, and I don't know what's gonna happen there, and I'm feeling really insecure by myself because engaging with this institution has always been a bit adversarial, because I'm usually called when my kid has done something wrong. I don't wanna go. I don't wanna be in a room with, and you hear about how terrible the language is and how terribly sometimes our teachers and folks speak badly about people who are in marginalized groups. Why would they want to exchange with you?
So since we're
That's
not,
all I'm saying. I mean, we can move on, but I'm just saying we have to think about that
Well, no,
in the process.
you and I, as liaisons to the CRJ, we have a meeting coming up Monday, right? Is this something that we could enlist the help?
Yeah, I think if they put it on and ask, if I go and I say, y'all, I want
Right.
to talk to some folks, they will bring folks, but I have to be careful about who else comes with me, because
Right.
people are not going to be necessarily so open to talk about these things, because people are afraid of retaliation to their children.
Understood.
So they will tell me, I got tons of text messages and emails from people of color in the community about what their experience is, but they're scared of losing their jobs. They're scared of retaliation in the community. I mean, like real fears. Like some of them have actually lost their jobs. So they're afraid. So they're afraid to speak up. I'm not saying we don't have processes and people can't do that. But when it comes to these cultural pieces, people are concerned. They know there's problems, but they're afraid to do anything about it because there's so much rejection to actually have open conversations about this stuff or to actually start dealing with this. It's just like the boundaries thing. We can move off boundaries, but when we had lower FRL, our kids were still failing. So my thing is like, it doesn't matter what we do if we're still failing whole populations and subsets of people. We can't say, hey, we need more from you, and sorry, we haven't given you much, but you know what I'm saying? I mean, like you can give kids some soccer clothes and that's great, but what about the fact that I need to transition out of this district, I need to graduate, I need to be able to take care of my family. And when people can't do that, when they have 1,000 barriers, some, subjective, some objective, that's problematic. I don't want to interface with you. Why?
so how about we identify, you guys go to what you were referring to, you were using an acronym, so, I'm not sure what it was, but.
Coalition for
That
Racial
one.
Justice, Black
Gotcha,
Voices
yeah, so
Project.
you guys go to that and find out what opportunities there would be. And my personal thought would be that maybe instead of going in with, like, this is what we're talking about, and it's not even, what Latasha is saying is that you just maybe, you're there. It's not that people are coming because of you, but you're there for something that they're already there for anyway. So we wouldn't really have an agenda. It'd just be, we're here to build bridges. We wanna hear what matters to you, and that's a starting place. If we go in with an agenda, sounds like what Latasha is saying is, here's our agenda.
If we
here's
come
our
in with an agenda, you automatically have made a huge cultural flaw.
Yeah.
Because you made it about yourself, and then you went in and you asked people to do something for you. It's a huge cultural issue, right? It comes from a very white normative frame of, I have an agenda, I want something from you, you give it, but you don't really get anything in exchange. That's not a cultural lenses are circular, they're not square. And so it would be like, I'm here to be a part of your process. If you have time and availability and want to talk to me about school stuff, come talk to me. That's a different frame. It's a completely different frame.
Yeah.
That's more culturally appropriate. It's not culturally appropriate to be like, come to my thing. Unless there's alcohol in the party, I'm not coming.
And then as far as
I'm not saying
boundaries
that's
go-
all cultural groups, but I'm just saying like it's different when I'm gonna come and have a good time versus you want something from me.
So what I hear you saying is that there's different types of approaches that need to be used for different groups.
Oh, absolutely.
So this would be something that could be done all the time, but in particular right now, since we're not ready to do boundary discussions, this is something that could happen when the events happen. And then once we get to the point where we are more unified with boundaries, then we could set up something for that. That's a little more like, a traditional listening post sort of thing. A different format, but, we say it's at this time, at this place, and you come.
It'll be good to know what that is when you enter into those other subsets of groups so that you can invite them.
Yeah.
Say, here's another opportunity if you would like to come.
Yeah.
And here's some of the things we might talk about.
But understanding that different approaches are needed for different groups.
Well, yes, I'm
so-
just saying like,
Mhm.
in that space, that's when after you've built bridges is probably not the right word I'm gonna use, but after you have built some rapport with some folks, then you can invite people and say, you're welcome to come to this, and then explain what the experience is like when you come. This is what we'll do. This is that process, because people don't come because they're leery about that process, where other people have many opportunities to engage in those different type of processes. So they're more likely to come back to them because they kind of have an idea of how it will work. But if you've never gone, it's like caucusing for the first time. You're like, I don't know, all these people about to go over here. I don't know what's gonna happen. You're terrified. You want to be a part of the process. So it's the same thing. If I've never engaged in this way, I don't know how.
Okay. And format-wise, we've agreed, never do bird on a wire.
Oh,
Well,
yeah, I mean.
That's just what we're
Okay.
saying, but
And then recording in minutes, just because if we do something where a majority of the board, the only reason I put down there is if we do something where a majority of the board is present, as long as we have a record, I mean, in the past, Kim, you've been there furiously scribbling away, taking notes in the corner. Can we check out recorders?
Yeah.
And basically, minutes can say that here's, the meeting was at such and such, here's the agenda, or here's what was discussed, here's who was in attendance, and here's a link to the recording.
But usually for the major topics, like something like this, I do attend.
Okay?
It's beneficial for me
I'm
to
not
keep
trying
up
to
with what's going on.
exclude you.
No, I know, and I know
No, yes,
what
I
angle
am.
you're
I'm trying
going,
to
and I
exclude
appreciate
you.
it, but, yeah, for like the bell schedule, that's something I needed to keep up on, and something like attendance area development, yeah, that would be something.
Okay.
But would you even come to these smaller, kind of more casual ones?
Well, when we're talking attendance area, absolutely.
Yeah. You were at the Northwest Junior High
I went to the
one,
spot for,
In the spot, and
I'm just
there
saying,
was
like, if we're
Southeast.
engaging in these cultural events that are happening, it's gonna be, I don't know how that would work for you.
and that's,
well, I don't know.
and we could always,
There wouldn't be a forum there, so.
oh, that's true too.
I don't know
Yeah,
that there
and
would
it would
be-
really be more of, tell me what you talk, it would be more engaging with
Right.
people. You might have like a whiteboard or something where people, you can have some topics and people can
Okay.
include a couple of ideas that they wanna write and they don't wanna talk directly to you. So you would find multiple ways, paper or whatever ways, you can have an iPad or whatever, if people wanted to engage in that way, if they didn't feel comfortable necessarily
Sure.
talking to you. But you would have multiple ways to do that at those events, because you would just be set up at a table, basically as a booth.
Sure.
And then, it's a great opportunity that people come and say, oh no, so-and-so, go tell your story about what happened to you and blah, blah, blah. So be prepared for that as well, is that there will be lots of storytelling, which is culturally appropriate as well.
So I have one crazy idea that's in.
I like crazy ideas.
This is nuts, though. It involves us divide and conquer.
Okay.
Is it safe to say that a large amount of our community tends to shop at Hy-Vee for groceries?
or Fairway if it's
It
closer to your
depends on
house.
which Hy-Vee.
Good point.
Depends on what's closer to your house. We go to
Yeah.
Fairway.
Yeah.
Fairway. I suppose there's Super Walmart too.
And I don't know where you're going with this, but when I go and get groceries, especially if I have my kids with me,
I don't want to
I'm not
talk to
looking
you.
to talk to people.
No.
Okay.
I'm talking about those as locations, but I'm talking about setting up, having board members available just for those informal chats.
That will work really well for certain populations. If you're looking for people of color, that's not gonna work.
Okay.
I'm trying to get in. Matter of fact, most people, especially in my age group, we won't talk to you. I want to get my food and I'm gonna go home. Seriously. And there's some people who would try to talk to you. That's when you get headphones and stuff. You just go in the store. You change your hair and then you go in the store and then people don't know who you are and you can shop all you want. But most people are going to the grocery store and they're trying to come out. They're usually not hanging out so much.
Yeah.
But
Well,
you would do
and I
like
guess-
school board trivia night or something at one.
No, so, okay, we can come back to that, so,
I think if we're looking at those groups, or if we know, there are.
I'm just trying to look for
certain
places
events.
that are safer than, come to Northwest Junior High, so we can have a listing
Well,
of.
I think we
I
can
think
do
you
some
should
of
do that.
Still though.
You still do that.
We still need to do some of that. What I think I hear Latasha saying is that
Absolutely.
we need a dual approach. And that is not gonna catch
That's gonna
That'd
catch
be a
the people
different
that you
approach.
know who are more likely to
It's
come.
just not gonna,
Can
no
we
matter
tap-
how we try and do it with the babysitting and the rides and all that, it's just not gonna get there.
Can we tap into places of worship too?
Sure. You sure could. Actually, you'll get a more captive audience and you'll get more people because it's more of a formal setting. And people will be more prepared to engage with you, but that would be more of a bird on the wire approach. They would have an expectation that you would do that. They wouldn't have an expectation that you would sit in groups. It would feel awkward to them, like.
Well, and I mean for like more informal, not the whole board shows up to.
Well, I mean, I'm not all, but I'm just saying, even in
Sure.
that case, you still would be seated or standing in front of people because they will feel like this is church, so there's a certain level of,
What I'd suggest is maybe,
I'm just
since Latasha seems to have some knowledge of where people would go, maybe, could you come up with maybe some ideas on what would be places and times?
Safe.
safe.
And
What do you
then-
mean
And then
safe?
we
No,
can figure
places
out
that-
later who's gonna be there and that kind of thing, because what I heard you say a minute ago, or not,
No, what I-
literally, but it depends who it is. too.
Stop, Kim.
True.
And
What
so
I-
maybe it doesn't, maybe it shouldn't be us,
What
because
I
that's
mean-
not gonna work, maybe it needs to be some other folks.
That would be, if you're
Kids
trying to
would-
get down to nitty gritty like that, that would be in a closed door situation where people would be able to kind of expel those issues. But if you're talking about more open and anyone can kind of come and talk to you, then, I don't think it will necessarily matter who the board
Okay,
members are.
so we could all take one, and, or two, or whatever, every board.
I want the record to show, I meant places that people would feel are not formal, that are more informal settings to come and talk to us. Because
Sure.
Kim's over here chuckling because
Okay, I missed that, thank goodness. Yeah, I can think of a couple places that I know people would, I just know those events are coming up and they're in a
Yeah.
couple of weeks and it's easy to plan around, getting a table or something. Those are pretty easy, they're pretty, fill out this form. The school district usually has a table anyways. It's not a school board table, but it's more of a, them trying to have more of a presence in their hiring, et cetera, at those events. They try to be at those events. So it's just getting another table, probably not next to them. But, I mean, I'm just saying, like, get a job or.
So, if I could be so bold, would you be willing to come up with a list of places?
How many places do you all think you want? And I'm gonna keep naming those two because those are two I know we
I
can get the
think,
largest
you
crowd.
tell us what's the right
I
place.
just think
and,
just get a
you
table.
know,
I
mean,
think
if there's
that's,
only two of them that are the right things to do, then that's what we'll do.
I just think because of time and knowing, I don't wanna add something extra for people to have to do if they're already planning on being at those events. I mean, and those events have people from multiple backgrounds, but they're more diverse crowds is what I'm saying. So I think those are easy places to get tables. Usually they're like $10 or something, But, that we could easily have folks come, sit, have a table, sit down. You're gonna need something to pass out.
And
So
we
I
can
don't
keep
know
it
what
to
the
just 3
district
of us
has.
so that it doesn't involve minutes and all that.
Yeah, if you just got 3 people, I can't do Juneteenth, but you guys can be there. It's too hard to coordinate and do school where I'm working.
So I like that though, I mean, events already happening.
Yeah, because I think it will add, especially right now, trying to get this together will put too much pressure on people because they're like, okay, I'm just trying to get my kid through the rest of the school year and et cetera. It's just too stressful right now.
Okay.
And then let's come back to the listening posts on boundaries when we have a better idea of timing on that.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, I don't feel like I could say, yeah, we're gonna be ready for that in July. Because I mean, Chris wanted us to be ready in May, and we're not ready in May. So,
Well, in all fairness, it's May 3, but.
what's that?
I said in all fairness, it's May 3, but I don't know if I'm much more optimistic.
We have to be a lot more directed in our,
Converged.
in our, yes, convergence than we are at the moment, so it's
Okay.
gonna take a while. I don't know how long that will take.
Well, okay, so if you're willing to do that, Latasha, that's great.
Sure.
I think that maybe we can additionally, maybe just about, not right now, but just be thinking about back pocket ideas for places that we could arrange quickly, whether it's public library, whether it's a whatever, neighborhood center, whatever, okay? For things that aren't already happening. But it would be nice to have that list of events that are happening.
And let us know if there's some things, some places that you can think of that would be right for that.
Those are just the two that are popping in my head right now. There's other things. I'm also thinking about the appropriateness of the type of conversation and will it be disruptive to what's happening?
Right.
And those are cases where there's music, there's kids playing and having fun, but then there's also really good conversations
Some
happening.
opportunities, yeah.
Right, so I think, a little bit of both. Those two are the ones that stick out to me the most, so that we don't inundate people.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, should I send Kim the form for the table?
For like a table?
Yeah.
I like it.
I will do that.
Kim is the conduit through which all important things happen.
Good to know.
Moving on.
Sure.
So what's the date on that?
June 25th and the Latino Fest, I will look that up.
So we need to identify then who will be at each one. And we don't have to do it right this second, but we have to talk about it before. June 25th, you said?
Yep, it's a Saturday, just FYI.
I hate to say it, but I'm out on that day, so, sorry.
What was the
No, I
other
have
date?
to find one other person. It's June 20th, I have to log in and stuff. I have to do some
Okay.
stuff.
We'd have to find another person.
Well, because I can't do Juneteenth, I'm the coordinator.
Oh, yeah.
It's gonna be really difficult to stay and talk to people,
So-
because I'm already standing to talk to people.
So let's go to the rest of the board and see if there'd be 3 people
Sure.
willing to do that. Other than,
And you can let me know, or let both of us know what the other date is when you're.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
just
cool.
about to look it
I'll
up.
say June (?)
No, that's the actual
25th.
date. That's the actual date.
No, I thought you were looking up a second event.
is she-
I don't think it's in June, I think it's like in July or August.
Okay. Other event.
It would be the Latino Festival, so did you
Yes.
have the correct name?
Latino Festival. And you'll get that information to us, because I'm gonna have to report out on this, to the board. Okay. So, moving on. Protocol for off-site meetings with,
August 15th.
August 15th, look at that.
Whoops, that's last year, my bad.
Never
bad.
mind.
But it's usually in August, it's
Is it
usually
a
when I have
Sunday?
it.
I'll probably
It's
be gone for
usually on a Saturday, and it's usually about the second
that.
weekend in August,
So
but
the 13th maybe?
yeah, possibly, yeah.
Okay. So a couple big things in the summertime, June 25 and August possibly 13. Okay. Protocol for off-site meetings with the board. I've already kind of touched on some of this, but we've been getting invited by PTOs. I know the Kirkwood PTO just reached out last week. Lori and Chris Liebig and myself met with the Garner PTO. I always feel kind of, we've agreed that by changing the way minutes are done, that takes down one barrier. Because previously it meant that Kim had to attend a meeting, needed to, have these really formal minutes, but we could take a recorder to those events without Kim's presence, so she doesn't have to follow us around.
So I'm just gonna ask this, has Joe Holland or somebody advised us that we can't just listen to people without it being an open meeting? Because there's no deliberating, there's no decisions being made.
If you're not deliberating and you're not making decisions, nothing prevents you from being together collectively as a group, whether it's to listen, to socialize. As long as you are not meeting as a deliberative body, that's not required. I know the conversation was about what would be discussed and could it be considered deliberative? And then his advice was, if there's any danger that you're going to veer into something that sounds deliberative, then you're better off to proactively post
Right.
so that you aren't restricted.
And
There are no restrictions.
That's the counsel from the IASB as well.
Yeah, so
So for
if
instance, some
you
of the
can,
discussion that we
contain
had-
yourself to sitting and listening, you're good to go. If you're gonna get out of that arena even a little bit,
I mean, by answering questions, is that,
No, it's more along the lines of once you start the dialogue back and forth and amongst each other, will that then be considered deliberative?
and I'm curious, Brian, do you think we did that at Garner?
It could be perceived as being deliberative, and that's all that matters in
Yeah.
open meetings,
Okay.
it is the perception.
Okay.
Doesn't matter if we did, because we didn't, but.
So we don't want to go there then?
I mean,
Okay.
but there's obviously, there's differences of opinion. When we were discussing, we were answering questions, and we'd always say things like, now, this is just my opinion, but by saying that with the majority of the board, that could be perceived as deliberation.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
well then, I guess I get that.
Yeah, it's
It's a slippery
It's
slope.
part
really
of, part of its appearances too.
Okay, well, we don't,
Yeah.
going into a bond, but we don't need any kind of bad stuff going on.
Well,
Made at the
So-
darn
and I know-
PTO meeting.
And I know in the past, one of the concerns, and this might help frame it too, one of the concerns was that you don't want to get somewhere and start listening to people who then ask questions that then you say, I don't think we should answer that.
Yeah.
Because it's not posted, it might sound deliberative, and here, you know, the iron's hot. You're ready to strike because they're sitting right in front of you, but now you feel like, oh, we shouldn't talk about that. And so that was one of those, that came up in the conversation about, would we be just better off just posting this and not having to worry about it? So that's part of that context too.
Just for 1 second to go back. It is August 13th from 12:30 to 9:30 at the Ped.
Awesome. 9:30, 12:30 Pet Mall.
Yes.
What day?
It's August 13th from 12:30 to 9:30 in the Ped Mall. The Juneteenth is at actually Mercer Park. So, these want to give you locations.
At the Aquatic Center at Mercer Park.
It's
Indoors
in
or
the-
outdoors?
It's on an outdoor
Outdoors.
pavilion,
Okay.
2 pavilions.
Okay.
So should we do like a sign-up genius or something with that?
I think it's probably a good idea.
It might just be easy to just do an email. So sign up right here. But it's nice for sign jeans because it will email you back, unless you just don't check your email like that.
Mhm. So,
So that's the answer, then we need to keep it to 3 for PTO meetings.
yes,
Unless we're
but,
gonna take the recorder, and my personal opinion on that would be that we would have to go through a whole conversation then with the PTO folks and say, are you comfortable with us having a recorder and knowing this is gonna be on the website, and, you know.
Now, one thing
I
you
mean, I'm not sure I'd be comfortable with that, just.
But one thing you
know.
can do is you can, and it may not be awkward, but from the standpoint of, hey, we will come and either be there before your meeting or after your meeting, so that you just butt it up against it, and then, you know, so you come in, you do your listening piece, your listening post, you do that piece of it,
that part
and then
has
you
to be
adjourn
open.
your meeting,
Right.
and at least enough of you leave so that there's not a quorum, and then they can do their business about when's the bake sale, when's the whatever we're doing, and they can do all that stuff, and they don't have to worry about any of that being on tape.
Oh, yeah, no, that wouldn't be on tape, but even just asking questions and
Yeah.
giving their feedback, I mean,
Yep,
I
there's a
think it's
constraint
safe
to
to
it.
assume that a lot of people wouldn't be comfortable with
Yep,
having that
You're
on
right.
record somewhere that somebody can just pull up,
yep.
especially when they're talking about their kids,
Yeah,
you know.
Well, and they need to, that's the point I keep making when we get invited by PTOs to say, just please let me know if 4 people RSVP that they're coming, and I will arrange to have a recorder there, and we can post that there is a meeting going on, but it has to be open to members of the public during that portion of the meeting.
Mhm.
So I don't know if anybody else is responding in that way, but I'm saying, yes, I'd love to be there, but please let me know. If there's more than 3 people that you know are coming, we need to.
And I would go a step further and say, do you want that? I mean, if it's gonna be recorded, are people gonna not wanna talk?
Right, so, okay, so I guess just discussing, understanding that we may choose, and maybe this is up for the board discussion more, that we may choose just to limit it to 3, which avoids this whole discussion.
I mean, we can put it to the PTOs and have them make the decision, do you want this, or do you care if we have it recorded? To have 4 members there, we would have to record it.
Right, so.
And if you're not comfortable with that, then we'll just have 3.
My point is that if we're gonna have 4 there, then just brainstorming what needs to happen.
Sure.
These are the 6 things that need to happen.
Yeah.
We have an agenda posted, it's open to the public, it will be recorded. Board minutes need to be offered, and no board action will be taken away from the board table. So that way 4 people at a PTO meeting don't decide, we've just solved all the district problems. Here's what we're gonna do, let's go have lunch now. You gotta avoid that. And perception is everything. That's why we need to do this, to make sure that legally.
Okay.
But I agree with you that if the PTO says, yes, by golly, we want all 7 of you there.
Yeah, then
Then
fine. We'll
fine.
bring our recorder, we'll do our minutes, and that's great.
Mhm.
We're happy to do it.
But I think
That's-
most of them will do what you said and go, let's limit it to 3.
Some might not.
Some might not.
And we really have to be careful, especially
But
if all 7 show
now,
up.
now we have officially looked at an option for should they want to have more than 4 of us, more than 3 of us. Moving on? Sweet. Legislative update, Steve.
All right, session's over. That's a good thing right now. I told you that we're looking into SAVE, and knowing that the reauthorization is not dead. The governor's talked about wanting to bring it up again. You know, there's 2 ways to think about this. First of all, $434 million is an amazingly large sum of money that's hard to comprehend. And to say that, to take a sliver of that off and give it to the governor for water quality in exchange for not having to go through the process of trying to convince 60% plus 1 of our voters to vote for the GO bond, you know, that'd be a huge win for our community. You know, at the same time, they keep underfunding public education, and so, you know, when I talk to Mary Masher and Bob Dvorsky and Joe Bolcom and the rest of the crew here from the legislative group that are not feeling a lot of love from the other side of the aisle, I understand why there's not a lot of interest in compromise here, because it just seems like we keep giving and we're not getting anything back. So that's going to be, tilting forward, that's going to be a huge issue going into the next session. They're already starting to talk about it. I mean, we haven't even wrapped up, and they're already out there as I'm reading the wrap-up stuff, previewing that for next time around. So that SAVE reauthorization is going to be front and center. I think if we could couple that with what have you done for me lately type of discussion on supplemental state aid, and say, you know, you give us a decent supplemental state aid, and heck, why don't you actually do what you're supposed to do by law and do 2 years worth of it, and do it at a reasonable amount. And maybe I'm back at the table saying I'm willing to compromise on water quality. You give, I
So
give.
tell me the water quality piece, because I'm listening, because
Yeah.
giving Flint,
Drawing something.
I'm like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
we need to be paying attention to this.
Now, I'll tell you that you're right. That's going to probably be a legislative issue too. We're in front of it. We're already doing the testing on our end here, because we want to make sure that that's good. Another piece that was in legislation last time, so I'm staying on topic here for those keeping notes, is radon testing. That didn't make it through last time, but we're also proactively doing that now in the district. We've got plans in place for lead and radon, because we assume that's going to come through the legislature. We'd rather do it first and know the answers than wait for someone to tell us we have to do it, kind of thing. So we're already working that. But what the governor wants to do is he wants to clean up groundwater, which won't necessarily make a difference to drinking water, because it's what's flowing through town and the river. And he wants to do that by shaving a slice off the top of the sales tax dollars and using that for water quality. Now, if you talk to Mary, Bob et al., they'll tell you that that's a slippery slope. They shave a portion of that penny off for water quality. They could shave it off for community colleges. They could shave it off for roads.
Just to back up, that 1 penny tax was passed in all 99 counties with the understanding that it would be used for
Right.
education purposes.
I got you.
The governor's theory on that, by the way, having had my time in his office, is that when they passed that, they gave an estimate for how much money would be raised through the sales tax. It was a pretty low estimate. We've already raised more than that. So he feels that we've met the obligation to the voters because we have raised more money than they were told would be raised when they voted for it.
Whatever.
How does he sleep at night?
I'm just repeating things that I've been told. So, so that's gonna be a huge hot topic for us next time around. Like I said, if they came forward with 2 years of supplemental state aid, if it was in the 3 to 4% range, or plus, and then now they want to talk about extending SAVE and using some of the money for water quality, at least I think we got a starter for discussion.
Are other districts as focused as we are on the same?
They are for different reasons. I'll give you an example right up the road and then one across the state. Cedar Rapids has the same kind of infrastructure needs that we do, 100-year-old buildings that aren't ADA compliant. Their problem is that they have declining enrollment, so they're even in worse shape than we are at building one of these things out, so they have the same level of desperation that we do. Then go across the state to Sioux City. Difference between Sioux City and us is a very, very low property tax or property value. So when they turn the crank on it, they don't get much money out of it. And so they're having a hard, if they were to go out and pass a bond like we're trying to do the renovations, their property tax would go through the roof. And their community is just unwilling to support it. So they're stuck with a growing population like we are, low property tax value like Cedar Rapids, and no ability to raise the money to do this.
And I suppose
So-
with rural districts, it's gonna be the same thing, because it's the farmers that are gonna bear the burden of that.
Yep, and they don't want to see that taxation go up on their property taxes through a general obligation bond. So that's part of the promise of the sales tax and why it's put in place in the first place.
So it's, I mean, because it's ending now, it's
Yeah.
gonna get a lot of focus next.
Yeah.
So we have some.
I think we got some
certainty that
leverage.
it's gonna get further than it did this session.
I think we got some leverage on it. So, the only problem that you'd hear from some of the lobbyists out there is that the closer we get to the expiration, the more desperate we become, and does the lever actually switch hands and go to the other side? Which is why I think when we got a little distance from it now, if we can figure out a way to make a compromise, we talked earlier, right? Compromise, nobody's completely happy with the deal. If we could get to that point, I think we'd be a lot better off. There's so much partisanship you talked about here and here. We got that going on in the legislature too, and they're having a hard time stepping across the aisle and saying, you know what, that's a reasonable thing. Because, it goes back to what you just said about water quality. Hey, our kids are swimming and boating in this. Our kids are eating fish that come out of these rivers. This water is spilling over banks and running into our water supply, and we're having to clean it up. It flows through our pipes that we do for water intake down there at the water treatment plant. If it was cleaned up, it'd be better for the state. So I don't begrudge them the need to do that, just like I don't begrudge them the need to fix roads and build bridges. Revenue source is the one where we start to split hairs on that.
If they turn this water quality thing into an educational.
Yeah, I know. And that's where, especially you talk to somebody who wants to get fired up about it, talk to Mary Masher about it. She and I have had quite a few discussions about how they're holding us hostage, and that's really unfortunate.
Children hostage.
Yep.
So which way, besides SAVE, what else we?
That and supplemental state aid will be the big ones for next year, coming up. One of the things that you hear them talking a lot about is, can we actually get to the point where we're back on track and we're doing 2 years of supplemental state aid and not just the one. So get back on the train and not constantly be a year behind. Smarter Balanced is going to be another issue that's out there. I know you guys have been front and center with that. The rules as they are passed right now, if signed by the governor, appear to prohibit the Department of Ed from moving forward on buying Smarter Balanced. So unless there's some partial veto that goes through there, the State Department of Ed cannot purchase Smarter Balanced. So that means that we're left, quote unquote, without an assessment next year, which means that we would use the IO assessments again. And I think we've got enough questions in the test bank that we'll be fine with that. So that's going to be a big one next year, is what happens with Smarter Balanced.
How do you usually purchase that?
You buy it through the state, and
Do you usually purchase it every year? Is it
yeah,
a yearly
it's a
expense?
yearly thing. We have it budgeted. That's what the killer is for us, because right now we budget about $4.25 per kid, and all in with science is about $40 per kid on the Smarter Balance. We're not budgeted for that.
So next
Mike-
year, when you say we have enough questions in the question bank, you're saying we would just be
Sorry.
purchasing it again? They have
when
that
we buy them
questions.
from
Okay.
them, we can do it without a repeat of questions, which is the big deal.
Okay.
Because otherwise you start to lose validity on it, when you try to compare your test results from year to year. Let's see, I just lost my train of thought, sorry about that. What was- No, I went to Smarter Balanced, and then I went to, what did I segue to after that? I'm losing my mind here tonight. Hang on. No. Yeah, Smarter Balance, let's see, save. Let me come to me here, I might have to come back to it.
Third grade retention?
Yes, early literacy intervention.
I don't think you
Eli.
said it, but that's
Perfect.
good.
It's the hot potato.
There you go, early literacy intervention. So that got bumped again. It's a funding issue that's out there. There was a lot of opposition to it on theory, not just on funding. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that in the next go-round. I think that it may hinge in part on what other things are going to cost money in the budget, because to fully fund it, they would have to allocate more money than they have been talking about allocating. So are they willing to fully fund it? Are they only going to partially fund it? Is it going to get bumped on the road again because there's opposition to it, both on principle and because it's not fully funded? So I think those three items and supplemental state aid, which is always there, I think those three items are going to consume most of the energy in the capital next year.
That's good, because that'll kind of segue into our summer discussion about legislative priorities.
Yep.
So we'll come back to that on agenda setting. Thank you. Last item.
What's the
We're,
last item?
we're just over an hour here. Want to know where we stand on thought exchange?
Ooh, all right. We will be sending you as the board, oops, I'm on the right webpage here. Sending you as the board your view of the process on Friday. We're cleaning up the last pieces right now. The building administrators got it today. One of the things that we have tried very hard to do, but we're asking them to do one last read on it, is when we did this, if you participated, remember one of the directions was do not use Mr. Kirschling's name when you talk about how awesome he is as a teacher. Don't use Mr. Murley's name when you talk about the fact that he's a horrible teacher type of thing. And we were pretty explicit with folks about not naming staff, not naming kids, not naming anybody. We don't want any names in there. We don't want things in there that says the art teacher at pick a school, which then winds up making that identifiable. So we did what we could to go through and scrub that stuff from both ends. So you walk on water or you're a horrible person. If you're named in there, we tried to strip all that out. The ones that were hard were the art teacher, the music teacher, the singletons out there. So we've got the building administrators going through that one last time to give you an idea about the time frame to do that. We had,
So each principal's going through those?
they're looking at theirs to help us make
So they see
sure.
those comments that people put in there that had the
They
art teacher,
see
the-
the ones that, we had a committee that looked at the ones that were clearly identifiable and said these stay, these go. They're doing one last read of the ones that are out there right now to make sure that, because as a committee, since I don't live in their building, I might not know that there's only one of something.
And
So
clearly, one person saying the art teacher, but is different than 100 people saying the art teacher.
Well,
That's
if
the
the-
problem.
yeah, yes and no. I mean, if they're identifying the art teacher,
Yeah.
those were the things that we asked them not to do.
Okay.
So we had, and the reason
I
is.
guess it depends on stars that have been assigned to the things as well.
No,
right?
if it
If it's in there.
identifies somebody,
Wow.
the idea was not to, this isn't, we're not on a witch hunt out there, we're not putting somebody on a pedestal or cutting them down
Okay.
as an individual. So
But-
if they are identifying someone as a person,
Yeah.
the board president is a moron, that's out. The board president should be president of the United States, that's out. They're an identifiable person. So we asked them what things are awesome about the district, what things are concerns about the district, not who.
Okay.
So we have 2,582 unique people who participated. Now, they might have participated
You
in,
said how many?
what's that?
How many?
2,582.
I heard 5,000, that's why I was
Now,
like, that's not
but
right.
next, they put in 5,660 thoughts.
Wow.
Then, when they went to vote, there were 173,347 votes. out
I
there
gotta see these
in the
results.
STAR process. So it's not gonna be surprising. The themes, things they love, I can just tell you this from looking through them, they love the diversity of our district. Number one, that's the thing they love. They love our staff. Things they don't love, transportation, class size, attendance zones. I mean, not telling you anything you don't already know. You'll see that as you go through there.
What? This is amazing.
So there's a lot of affirmation, things that you think you knew, but then there's a lot of really neat feedback that people have provided in there. So you guys are going to get it on Friday. We are not going to push it out to the general public until next week. We're going to give you as a board an opportunity to look through that also. So you will get a copy of that. You'll get a link to it. It's very easy to navigate the site. When you go out on there, when you click through to the page, you actually you can see it by the concerns that people have and the themes. You can see it by what your community appreciates. When you go to the school results tab on there, you actually get what looks like a Google map, and it's got all the little schoolhouses. So
Right.
you can look at each individual school and say, what did they say at Hills, what did they say at Horn, what did they say at Kirkwood. You can see all of that right there and look at each individual one. It tells you how many staff members participated, community members participated, parents. Parents were the number one group. 81% of our respondents were parents. We didn't have a lot of community members, so we're going to have to think about that next time around because we got a lot of people in town who don't have kids. We want to make sure that they participate. We also didn't have a lot of students. So that's one of the things we looked at from a gap standpoint of, okay, we need to work with, especially our high school and our junior high kids. We need to work with the
teachers,
psych,
too.
student councils, things like that. Depends on the building for teachers. Some buildings were really active, some not so much. I know where some of the outliers are. Man had a ton of community members participate. That may be because right now Man's doing a lot of outreach and they have a lot of community members coming in that don't have kids in the school. You heard Julie talk about that at the board meeting. So there's some outliers out there like that we saw. So it's great
We should be
food
seeing
for
that in about
thought.
3 days.
Yep, you see that on Friday. I'm very worried about labeling anyone.
But the SharePoint,
Yeah.
doesn't just come to the board though, if I remember.
Um,
Doesn't the third,
The third step, that'll go out to the general
That's
public,
what I
right?
thought.
That goes to everybody next week.
Next
I'm just
week, okay,
sending,
gotcha.
I'm just sending the link to you Friday, so you get a
Gotcha.
chance to look at it ahead of time.
What's your concern about
Before the
labeling?
emails start rolling in.
Yeah. What's that?
What's your concern about labeling?
With individual people. That
Oh.
any individual person gets labeled as negative or positive. We
Okay.
really wanted, the questions were, what do you appreciate about that? We started out with, what are you concerned about? And then the next one was, what do you appreciate? And then, what other thoughts do you have? And so it was we really wanted to focus on the what and the how and not the who. So,
So we had some who's in there.
yeah, and now to that credit, remember I told you that there were 5,660 thoughts? There were only 161 that were brought to us with names in them. So it was a very, very, I don't want to give you the impression that there were a lot. It was a very small number. By and large, 99% of the people followed the rules in the comments. So it was only 161. And of the 161, what did we screen out? 25 maybe?
I think,
30?
to that
I think it's
point?
closer to 30, but no, it wasn't
Yeah,
any more than
30.
that.
I mean,
yeah.
it was, we looked at most of the 161 and they were more cautious than we were. My theory is, unless it says Mr. Kirschling is a knucklehead, it probably needs to go in there.
Join the crowd.
So we were pretty open. I told the group today when we met with the principals, because they saw it this afternoon, I said, we believe in the right to free speech, and people have the right to share their point of view, positive or negative, and unless it is a character issue where they're going after somebody, we're going to let it stand. So even if it sounds like a small group, if it's a group, they're in there. They're in there.
And that was one of the
Great,
things.
so you mean we should prepare ourselves as board members, because we might be in there, is that what
Oh,
you're
yeah.
saying?
You might be.
Oh, great. I'm in there.
I know we're in
So
there.
excited that my.
Not by name, you're not. Not by name,
But
you're
you can
not.
tell I'm in there? Golly.
Not by name, you're
As
not.
long as I wasn't
You saw
called the
someone
colored,
with my-
the colored board member.
All right.
I think I could be all right.
Definitely.
I'm trying to. Look like wrecked here.
They like the
I'll just,
colored lady.
I'll just say that in discussing, in investigating this particular platform and talking with 6 to 7 school districts in the Pacific Northwest, the recurrent theme I got was, you'll appreciate the good, be prepared for the bad or the ugly.
Great. I'm probably in the ugly.
So-
Not actually, of course.
We are.
It's very easy to navigate, so I think you'll appreciate that.
I'm all right with it.
Very easy
I
to
think
navigate.
constructive criticism is good.
That's what I told the group today.
Hey, that's all right. A little girl wrote a paper said I was her hero in this district, so I'll take that.
Nice.
That's right.
Now, I'll just tell you, because you guys will appreciate this, because you're having a conversation, I'll just leave you with this one, which you won't be surprised at all. Those, in the number of stars that were assigned, the number 1 category by a factor of 3 was class size.
I didn't hear you say that.
Bam!
Well,
609 people assigned 3,168 stars to class size. So,
What are you gonna do?
that's it. Boundaries only got 205 people for 905 stars, so
That is a fact.
gives you an idea of
Huge
where
difference.
people's,
Of course, we
Hearts.
weren't as far into it then.
that's true too. That's true too, I'll give you that.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
so what's is there a next thought exchange? topic
Yeah,
that's
we,
coming?
they actually asked us about that when Kristen and I were on the phone with them, and I said, hang on, because I want to get a feel for, do we need to do attendance zones? Is it bond? Where do we want to go next? So I said, we're not jumping off just yet until we have a better understanding from the board about what's the next question. I presumed it was bond, and we talked a little bit about that, but I said we're not pulling out of the station until we have that conversation with the board.
I think by fall, we need to have that better defined.
That's what we thought. So that's kind of what they're queued up for, is to be
Give
ready to go in
summer off.
September. So that's a great
No
question.
stars over the
So-
summer.
Yeah.
So my question is, so we basically get like one of these exchanges a school year?
We can do 2.
We can do two?
2 for sure. Yeah, we think we can turn it around that quick.
I'm anxious to see this on Friday.
Yeah.
That's it, so 2,582 unique people, 5,660 thoughts, 173,347 votes or stars
That's correct.
assigned.
Yep.
Hot diggity dog,
Mhm.
okay. Agenda setting. I'm just gonna throw out there that we need to start talking legislative priorities. This is something that's typically done during the summers, because we have to have our legislative priorities submitted by the first week of August usually.
That's correct.
And Latasha, when we started this A&E committee, you had a lot of good ideas about the materials, the cowboy cards,
Oh.
the font coloring, the design, et cetera, et
Yes,
cetera.
that's my stuff.
So that should be part of the discussion, like that's a June, July type thing.
Sure.
So we have to define our priorities, and we can talk that at our next meeting. Define our priorities and define how we want to go about advocating for our priorities.
All
So we
right.
can get that tidied up by the end of July, because that's gonna come pretty quick. I would like that to be on the agenda.
Can we shrink that down?
It kinda needs to be on the agenda.
Can we take August off then? If we get it done, that'd be our reward.
I would love to.
If we don't take it off, I just might just not show up.
Well, in first 2 weeks of August, I'm gonna be in Minnesota, so I know I'm not gonna show
Well,
up.
it
if we
might
have a
make it
meeting
easier.
first week of August, so
We'll
I
have to be
would second
postponed to
that.
September.
Wacky.
I was hoping we could take July off too, but you just dashed the hopes on that.
It's only one item.
We might
If you don't have anything else, and we adjourn right now, I'm just saying.
be able to, that's our one item.
So we don't have anything
Come on,
else?
Tate.
We could, I hate to say it, but we could continue to circle around, I mean, we'll just wait and see what the board says about the listing post thing. See on that.
So it might be a debrief, but
Mm,
that would debrief at the board table though.
Yep. If the board says, here's what we'd like to see, fine, throw it to us, but right now we spent 45 minutes trying to initiate a discussion we're not sure if the board's ready to have. Right?
Sure.
But we made some headway because we've got a couple non-traditional opportunities for informal, well, it is.
Yes.
It's not us saying, come here, right?
True.
It's just like we said at the beginning.
We'll find a new word other than non-traditional. We'll find a new word, but I understand.
What's
I don't know, I have to think about it.
better than what I said before is
A safe space.
like we're gonna have it on the edge of a cliff or something. Don't
I
make
got
mistakes. All right, anything else? Entertain a motion to adjourn. Second? Gotta do it officially. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Yahoo.